Imagine this scenario. You're at a 5th grade chorus concert. It's the annual winter concert, so they're singing mostly holiday and winter-themed songs. The music teacher stands up and introduces the next song, and that there will be a soloist. A small 5th grader gets up from the very back of the risers and politely eases his way past his peers. He is absolutely terrified. His head is bent over. His feet feel like cinder blocks. It's like he's walking through tar. You could almost match up the first verse of Eminem's Lose Yourself to this little boy's motions. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, minus the vomit on his sweater part. But I can assure you, it feels like his stomach is in his throat in this very moment. He walks up to that lone microphone and gazes out into an audience filled with hundreds of parents and family members, all staring at him. He's never had this much attention drawn on him before. And he's thinking to himself, why the hell did I sign up for this? The music starts and he feels like his heart is about to beat out of his very chest. He feels like he's standing at the edge of a cliff. His only choice is to jump. Then with all the strength he can muster, he opens his mouth and makes the leap. As you may have guessed it already, that little nervous wreck was me when I was in 5th grade. And if it weren't for that one terrifying moment, I wouldn't be on this stage today, speaking to all of you. So let me back up and give you a little bit of background as to just how that little nervous wreck ended up in front of that microphone, and ultimately, how I ended up here. So it's safe to say, as a 5th grader, I was pretty reserved. I had a small group of friends. I rarely, if ever, raised my hand in class, and teachers would constantly write on my report card how I would never participate. And I wouldn't participate not because I didn't know the answers to the teacher's questions, because I could usually have those, or at least most of the time. I could take a stab at whatever arithmetic question was posed to the class, or talk for hours on end about some vague history subject that I'd already read several books on, because as most of my friends know, I'm a bit of a history geek. But I wouldn't participate because I didn't have these answers. Because I was afraid. I was afraid of opening it up. I was self-conscious, because what if I got the question wrong and people thought I was stupid? What if I reached out to this new person and they didn't like me? They thought I was weird. It was thoughts like these that held me back. So I just kept my mouth shut, didn't say anything, and lived in this cocoon that I had built up for myself. And I was comfortable. But little did I know, this metaphorical cocoon was holding me back. I could do so much more. I could reach out to so many more people, make new friends, share so many ideas that I had bottled up in me. But I was just too afraid to take that risk. Then my parents gave me a little push, as parents usually do. It was 5th grade, and sign-ups had gone home for the 5th grade chorus. Now, my parents knew that I liked singing, because I usually did it around the house, in the shower, or constantly in the car to annoy my brother. But I would only sing in these places because that was where I would be the only one I could, well, it was where I was alone, or at least with my family. I didn't have an audience, so I felt comfortable. No one could hear me sing. So why would I want to sing with a giant group of people who could all hear me? So what if they thought my voice was annoying? What if they thought I was a bad singer? I didn't want to subject myself to that. But of course, my parents, after a lot of convincing and a lot of protest on my part, I acquiesced, and they signed me up. The first day of rehearsal, I was absolutely terrified, as you can imagine. But then I noticed that a lot of the other kids, they were just as scared as I was. This was their first time too singing with a group of people, and there was a lot of kids who just plain old didn't want to be there. But I took comfort in that. And I eventually started to enjoy singing with the group, even looking forward to getting up early to go to rehearsals. Now, as a high schooler, there's nothing I look forward to early in the morning. So that was kind of a crazy thought. Then one day, our music teacher, Miss Venaria, she announced that she was going to be holding auditions for the Spanish rendition of O Christmas Tree. She needed soloists. Of course, I had absolutely no interest in auditioning for said solo. I'd only just gotten comfortable singing with the group as a whole. Why would I want to sing alone in front of everyone else? It's crazy talk. But then, as my parents gave me a little push, I got another one that day. My friend Madison was sitting right next to me, and he said something along the lines of, dude, you should totally try out for that solo. Of course, I replied with a firm but polite, no, are you crazy? But after a lot of persistence on his part to go up as a duet, because he was just as scared as I was, we both could support each other up there. So he did a lot of convincing, as my parents did, and then after a lot of protest, yet again, on my part, I gave in, and we went up there together. Now, who here hates public speaking? Go on, don't be shy. All right, it's fair to say that's a lot of us. About 80% of the population has some sort of fear, feels stress, or some sort of anxiety when it comes to public speaking. And about another 10% of people suffer from glossophobia, meaning that they are absolutely scared to death of public speaking. Now, what about public singing? So you can imagine, I was petrified. I absolutely did not want to be in that exact position at the edge of the stage, singing in front of the entire group. My heart felt like it was about to beat out of my chest, and perspiration was leaving embarrassingly noticeable marks underneath both of my armpits. The words, "Tyler and Madison, you're up," felt like a death sentence. Then the music cued us in, and of course, at first my voice only came out as a barely audible squeak. But after a while, my volume started to increase to match that of Madison's. I started to feel a little bit more comfortable. Obviously, still terrified, but a little bit more comfortable. And then once the audition was over, I felt like I could take on the world. I felt so proud of myself. I took on one of my biggest fears head on. Singing for a moment didn't seem so hard. Now this is where I kind of like to make the comparison of facing your fears to that of extreme sports. Bear with me on this. Let's say you're about to go skydiving, standing on the plane and about to make the jump. You obviously feel a little bit scared. But that's totally normal because that's just your body's natural response to the situation, all through evolution. You're supposed to feel scared in that moment because your body's trying to keep you from causing harm to yourself, putting yourself in a dangerous situation, or just from doing something plain stupid. It's all to help enhance your chances of survival. Let's say you build up enough courage to jump out of that plane. After the initial moment of, holy crap, I'm going to die, you may actually enjoy the adrenaline rush. That's exactly what happened to me when I sang. I was absolutely terrified, but it started to feel better after a while. Now this is because after you continually subject yourself to fearful situations, your body and mind becomes a lot more acclimated to that fearful situation, and even starts to promote a much more positive emotional response. Now, I sing all the time, and I really enjoy it. And that's precisely why. If it weren't for that one audition in 5th grade, I wouldn't be where I am now, and it wouldn't have launched me into my passion. I continued singing all throughout middle school, and it even led me to start acting in middle school musical productions. Now, I practically live and breathe singing in theater, whether it's singing with my all-male acapella group or acting in a new production with my theater company. Also, because of my involvement in the performing arts, I've become a far more confident and outgoing person. I don't mind speaking in front of large groups of people or performing. And it's all because of that one audition. I'd even go as far as to say that it helped define who I am. Now, of course, whenever we face our fears, there's always the possibility of failure. Now, this is something that's always far too real for me as a performer, because when you're on stage, you are at your most vulnerable. Now, one of my biggest fears as a singer is forgetting the lyrics on stage. I can just imagine the same nightmare of me standing in front of an audience of a couple hundred people, blank-faced and bearing a stupid expression as I struggle to remember what comes next. This fear became all too real for me one day when I was singing at my elementary school principal's retirement party. I was on this exact same stage in this exact same spot. I was singing a rendition of Kids from Bye Bye Birdie. It was something like, kids, what's the matter with kids today? Kids who can understand anything they say. Oh, kids, they are disobedient. As you can imagine, I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my craft. So I was absolutely mortified with my performance. Felt like an absolute failure. But that's the thing. Whenever you build up enough courage to try and face your fears, you're not sure whether or not when you jump off that cliff, you're going to land on your feet or fall flat on your face. Now, I fell flat on my face, or at least I felt that way. But with the help and support of my friends, my family, my teachers, I was able to pick myself back up and regain my confidence. I've even become more comfortable with the prospect of failing during a performance. Just a couple weeks ago, I was singing at a fundraiser with my acapella group, and I forgot the lyrics to Let It Be. I know, it's pretty embarrassing. But that's the thing. I've become much more comfortable with a fearful situation such as failure. And I just learned to brush it off. It's only a small bump in the road. So here's my message to all of you. I know that our fears can seem daunting or impossible to overcome at times. But if you gather up enough courage and face that one terrifying moment, then I assure you, you too can sing. You can find a new passion, a talent, a new interest, a new life, and so much more. Just like I did. So this is my challenge. Go out and find your terrifying moment. Overcome it. And find your new passion, your new voice. And not only do that, help someone else overcome their terrifying moment. Because honestly, if it wasn't for the help and support from my friends, my family, and my teachers, as I said before, I wouldn't have continued this passion or found it in the first place. So let's all go out. Face those fears and find your voices. So let's be honest. Living in a world that's filled with people who aren't afraid to show their creative side and have themselves heard is so much more interesting than one that's filled with timid little fifth graders who are afraid to have their voices heard. So I must return to that image of me, standing in front of that lone microphone that's just a little too big for me, absolutely terrified of what I'm about to do next. O árbol de Navidad, que verdes son sus ramas, que verdes son el verano, también en el invierno. O árbol de Navidad, que verdes son sus ramas. Thank you.